Hi everyone, welcome back to the Event Crowd Success Stories podcast. I'm joined today by one of our fantastic students, Maryam. Maryam, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm really good, really good. And look, thank you so much for taking the time to do this. Really, really appreciate you taking the time out of your day. So, you are a student enrolled onto our event management diploma. Could you tell me a little bit about your background for our listeners and viewers and your kind of story up to deciding you wanted to work in the events industry or go into events?
Yeah, absolutely. So I graduated last year from SOAS with a bachelor in just management. It wasn't business management or anything. It's just plain old management. And I was like quite at a crossroad as to what I wanted to do moving forward and post graduation. And someone from the university actually encouraged me to go for a sabbatical role because I was part of a society where I used to run events and do like smaller scale events dedicated to students.
Okay.
And I really thought about it and I was like, okay, cool, I'll do it. And it's like a mini election for universities because you become the president of the Students' Union.
Okay.
And I had no idea what a president for a students' union's role entailed. But after I read, it was like almost a JD, like the job description. After I read that, I was like, oh my God, this seems like something I could do. And I really enjoyed putting on events for students. So I was like, I'm gonna go for that. I ran in the election. It was probably the most intense 4 days I had of my undergrad years. And I got the role. I got to be the president of activities and events at SOAS Students' Union,
Wow.
and that was a 1 year contract. So I finished that contract last week, and through that whole year, I planned the freshers, the welcome period, award ceremonies, um, parties, cultural months, Black History Month, and a variety of other events for students, for faculty. And yeah, that's basically how I got into events. And then I think it was mid of my sabbatical role, I was like, I feel like I don't have enough information on how to run a larger scale event with like the knowledge I need. So I was just browsing online at like smaller, easy level qualifications to do. And a friend of mine actually forwarded me a reel on Instagram of Event Crowd.
Okay.
So I opened it and I was like, what is this? I was like, oh, have I been living under a rock? So I booked a call in with student services and they told me a little bit about what Event Crowd was. And they also actually offered a sample lecture
Okay, yeah.
and I watched it and I was like, wow, I want to do this. So I asked my employer if that was something they'd be willing to allow me to do as it's a full-time role. So sometimes they don't allow clashes with like
Yeah.
education. And they were actually very encouraging and they told me to go for it. And I've done I wouldn't say half of the course just yet, but I'm almost there. And yeah, that's how I ended up from from a undergrad to event crowd today.
Wow. So just to clarify there, you have you completed your undergraduate at this stage? You've completed it.
I have. So I graduated last year with a bachelor's.
Nice. Okay. And then that sabbatical role, was that you taking a year out of university, or was that you working for the Students' Union at the same time as university?
So so right after I graduated, there was a 1 month gap where I was just existing. And then I started the role in July 2023, and it's a 1 year role, so I finished in July 2024. And it was a full-time paid position. So it was quite intense. It was like Monday to Friday, every day, planning something, doing something, delivering an event at least 2 or 3 times in a term.
Wow. Okay. And those are pretty large scale events then
They
for
are, yeah.
especially the Freshers' Fair. That must have been massive.
It was huge. So SOAS is relatively a small university. It only has about 7 to 8,000 students in comparison to other London universities. And so the influx of freshers varies from about 1,500 to 2,000 students. So we're planning and creating events from, I mean, mid-July up until September, because there was no previous kind of information about freshers because post-pandemic, I mean,
Mm.
there wasn't much going on. So I had to, from scratch, create events. So I did 30 plus events in the duration of 2.5 weeks. And a majority of them were delivered by me. So I was running around like a headless chicken, you can imagine. Um, Doing events like and events they varied quite a lot. So it was from things like welcome and yoga to
Right.
down to fair itself, down to a late license, which is club nights.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, so we had like a huge variety. We even had a silent disco, um, and that was amazing. So it was in the dark neon silent disco,
Nice.
which went very well actually. It was probably my favorite event, which is why I remembered it. Um, yeah. So I mean, we were expecting about 70% turnout and we hit the target and we actually went above as well. So we had
Nice.
about an 80% turnout for almost all of our events, with the fair itself being the largest turnout event. And for end of September, the weather was spectacular as well. So
Yeah.
that was great. And yeah, so that's basically just a little recap of
Yeah.
welcome and all of the crazy stuff I've been up to
I mean, what a
over the.
baptism of fire into kind of managing events and stuff, being thrown straight into like being the head of running all of the events for a students' union with various different events going on throughout the year. It must have been quite a challenge, but you mentioned there that you enjoyed it.
I did. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I did plan like smaller scale events for about 100, 200 students
Okay.
being part of a society. So doing that on a 10 times larger scale was a little bit of a shock as well, but I had really great support from the Students' Union staff who they don't really do event related stuff. I mean, that's all down to me, the president for events, so to have like delegating them to do things like, can you do this and can you do that? I
Yeah.
felt a bit naughty because I was like, oh no, I'm asking them
Mhm.
to do things that's not really what they would be up to. But I think everyone actually really enjoyed it.
No,
And before I finished my contract, I set up a template for the next person to
nice,
use as their freshers welcome. And I actually got a message from them a few days ago saying, thank you so much, it's so helpful.
nice, nice.
Um, so they're on track to also deliver a really great freshers as well.
Nice. I love that. I love that you took some time to sort of leave that for the next person. It's really kind and thoughtful. I mean, given the variety of different events you would have been working on in that 12 months, that must be really hard to condense into your CV. When you're writing your experience section and you've got to list all of that, it must be quite a challenge to kind of condense it all.
It
Mm.
is, I mean, the state of my CV at the moment, I mean, it's so long. I do really need to condense it, which I'm actually hoping someone at Event Crowd Student Services is going to
Yeah.
have a look at,
Yeah.
and kind of help me narrow down what I need to add. But yeah, I mean, the events really, like, again, they varied so much. I mean, I did everything down from planning and organizing, with starting with a blank piece of paper down to getting what was up here in reality. Like it's just, yeah, it's very challenging, but it's very rewarding when you see your work come to life. And also, and it's probably such a cliche thing that everyone in events says, it's like it's not just how proud you feel, but it's also like how much the people attending the event also enjoy the actual event itself. That I think that's the most rewarding part of being in events, and I think for me that's enough to want to do it for the rest of my life.
That's brilliant. Now that's really, really nice to hear that because that's something that a lot of people say, whenever we do whenever I have these conversations with current and former students. It's something that always comes up, and it's just really, it's nice to hear that is the way that you see it as well, you know, because it is incredibly rewarding, isn't it, when you see people enjoying something that started from a blank piece of paper and has now, like you said, develops its way into reality. And also, don't want to take away from the fact of how difficult that is. That's an incredibly hard thing to do with no prior experience of running events and no formal sort of training or qualification. So a massive well done, really, on being able to put on so many successful events. I think you've done really well.
Thank you. That means a lot.
No problem at all. And like you said there, yeah, send your CV into student services. We've got the CV clinic on the platform, so you can just send your CV in, and one of the team will help you to streamline that. Because, as we said before, you've got quite a few different events there that you need to try and condense into a
Yeah.
readable way, which is going to be quite a difficult challenge, but it should set you up really, really well for the future. And speaking of the future, what are your thoughts on your future and what you want to do next? I know you mentioned there you've done quite a variety of events in that year. Is there any kind of part of that that stood out to you, or is there anything new you'd like to try?
I think when it comes to future, I mean, when my contract was coming to an end, I really thought about what I wanted to do, and I had extensive conversations with my mum, who is basically my mentor, my agent, whatever you want to call it. And she actually encouraged me to start my own like event management company, and just go for it. Just put myself out there and see what I can get, and just, like market myself from everything I've done in 1 year down to, hi, I'm an event manager, with this qualification as well. And so I took on her advice. I literally started with like a measly little Instagram post, and I was like, I'm an event manager. This is one event I've done. Like, stay tuned and you'll see my journey. And I'm actually yet to update that. I've just remembered. And yeah, so I think a friend of mine shared it with someone, and I actually managed to land my first client who
Oh,
wants a wedding planned. And so I've been working almost every other day on her wedding, like organizing kind of venues and vendors. So, I mean, I really did put myself out there, and it just goes to show like you need to put yourself out there for you to be noticed. And as daunting as it may seem, someone out there does have faith in you, and you need to have that same faith in yourself. So I think, yeah, like that's what future is at the moment. Probably going to work on expanding that a little bit more. But I've also got some like backup options of, just applying to event coordinator roles within different industries so I can get those contacts and build my network as well.
wow. Congratulations on landing your first client. I think you've done something really cool there, which you've sort of gone, do you know what? I've learned a lot. I'm going to go out there on my own and just give it a go. So a massive fair play to you for having the kind of determination to do that, but then also landing your first client. So massive congratulations to you. I mean, there's a lot of freelance work out there at the moment, so it's a really good time to be an events freelancer. So yeah, massive congratulations. That's really cool news, and I think it's a really cool shout as well because you've got such a variety. It might be let's say you went to work for an organization where they did the same events again and again and again. You might maybe find that boring. You might want that kind of variety of working on all different kinds. So that's really cool. So massive well done. And listen, do you want to give your Instagram, the one you set up, a shout out here?
Yeah, absolutely. It's at premierevents.mariam.
Perfect.
That's the name I've gone for. So if you guys are watching and want to follow along, please do give it a follow, and I'd be very appreciative.
Oh, brilliant. No, look, m massive congratulations. Hats off to you. Um, I think what you've been able to achieve so far is brilliant, and from myself and the whole team here at Event Crowd, a massive, massive well done, and congratulations on landing your first client. That's really good news.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I was actually so like I think I was shocked at
Yeah.
first. It didn't hit me until like I actually spoke with her, and she was like, "Yeah, I'd love for you to do it." And she was so like chill about it. Yeah, and that was, yeah, just super amazing as well. So Thank you.
At all. In terms of then just what you've learned so far on the course, obviously you mentioned you're halfway through now, so you would have done some of the planning and safety module. Um, how do you feel like what you've learned has impacted you? And you mentioned earlier on in our conversation about having to plan all of these events from scratch and not really having anything to go off. If you could turn back time now, do them again after having learned what you've learned with Event Crowd, do you feel like that would have been something that would have been easier?
Absolutely. I think it would have been easier in the sense that on the website, on the platform, there are so many templates that
Mm.
are so helpful. I know I said only halfway through the course, but I did be very cheeky and I did go through all of the templates and I did download them and use whatever I could even before I reached that module. And I thought that was like one of the most helpful things that was out there as well. And the templates that I did use, I think I've also got them like personalized a little bit to the events that I've done as well. So I think had I not had them, I think it would have been more difficult. And I did struggle in the beginning a little bit because I didn't ever think about, oh, like ingress and egress, is it egress, right?
Sure.
And I was like, oh yeah, I didn't actually think about X, Y, and Z as well. And then it's just a lot of things you forget to think about because you just have never done an event at that scale before. Whereas before it was like, yeah, here's the door and here's the fire exit. But that's just not enough. And having those templates that are showing you, this is what you need to have, and this is also like other factors to consider. I remember when I did my very first event down to the last event I did, I was like reflecting on the massive difference there was in kind of the way the event ran. And for my very first event, there was no event run sheet. But for my last event, there was a very detailed run sheet and I think I gave everyone who was there, helping me with the event, one of these run sheets, and they were like, "Wow, this is such a great run sheet!" And we actually stuck to it because, if X didn't happen, there was another alternative for it. And I remember the CEO of the Students' Union, coming to me and saying, "Well done, like compared to your first event, th this has been a massive improvement. Not that your first event wasn't great, but this is just at a professional level." And I can happily say I can attribute all of that to the knowledge I've got from Event Crowd, and I'm super, super grateful that I actually went with my friend's advice and did Event Crowd as well. So yeah.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you very much, man. Really, really appreciate that. And it's just so genuinely from my side, it's just so nice to hear that we've been able to have a positive impact on your career so far. So look, a massive well done to you. You are a very impressive individual, and I'm sure you're going to go on to have a really, really outstanding career. And listen, please do keep in touch with the team. We'd love to keep an eye on where
I
you're
will.
going and what you're doing and how you're progressing. But look, thank you so much for your time today. Really, really appreciate you taking the time to do this call.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me as well. Yeah, I'd love to stay in touch and share my wisdom with whoever I can, if they would like any, or if they would even consider it wisdom.
Brilliant, brilliant. Thank you so much, Miriam.
Thank you.